Today, we will be examining 3 cold case disappearances that occurred in the state of Louisiana. But before we begin, I want to preface this by saying that I am not trying to connect or compare these cases. I simply wanted to choose a certain geographic area for the purpose of highlighting some of its most inexplicable and underreported missing persons cases. The hope in making a video like this will always be to bring attention to a case and the very real people it concerns, in hopes that one day, the family and friends of the missing may have closure and justice for their loved one. For that reason, the respective investigating agency for each case will be linked in the description below, and if you have any information regarding the whereabouts of the people we will be discussing today, I highly encourage you to submit a tip. And with that being said, we will begin in Marrero, Louisiana, with the case of Shane Fell. Sometime after midnight on June 10th, 2011, 36-year-old Shane Michael Fell was driving down River Road after a night out playing pool with his brother Brett and friends. Shane was a native of the town Gretna, only a 7-minute drive away from Marrero, and was currently residing in Harvey. In the early hours of that Friday morning, Shane approached a turn on the dimly lit River Road, aptly named Dead Man's Curve by locals, as it was notorious for causing car accidents. It seems that Shane didn't see the road curving as he approached it, and ended up losing control of the car and flipping it into a small ditch on the side of the road. Sometime after he climbed out of the vehicle, Shane's phone rang. It was Brett, calling to see if his brother had made it home safe. Shane told his brother what had just happened, and according to Brett, sounded coherent and did not indicate any injuries. Brett asked if anyone else was involved in the crash, and Shane said that it was only him. Their phone call ended after Shane told him his location, and Brett ran to his car and dialed 911 before setting out to find the scene of the accident for himself. Some reports say that after the 911 call, Shane called Brett back to confirm he was headed his way. This brief call was the last anyone would ever hear of Shane Fell. Approximately 20 minutes after the initial phone call, Brett Fell and police officers arrived at the crash. When they began to call out for Shane and search around the car, it was obvious that Shane was no longer there. Figuring that he could have just wandered off or tried finding help himself, the surrounding area was searched throughout the morning, but nothing of Shane's was discovered. This was extremely odd to everyone involved in the case, as the phone call seemed to indicate Shane was anticipating his brother's quick arrival to the scene. Police and Shane's family checked surrounding hospitals in case a passerby had picked him up, but he was found in none of these locations. Some believed he could have fallen into the Mississippi River, which sat right over a levee that ran parallel to River Road, but search boats found nothing to support this. Because his personal items were not found, investigators were able to conclude that wherever he had gone, he likely still had his keys, wallet, and cell phone. It would be 3 days before one of Shane's shoes was discovered in mud near the car, and 4 days before police dogs were brought to sniff around the area, only after it had rained and the surrounding area's grass had been cut. As you would expect, these searches turned up nothing. In the early days of the investigation, there were several major concerns about Shane's physical and mental state after the crash. Some reports indicate that Shane had been drinking that night, which prompted some to believe that Shane could have fled the scene on foot or hitched a ride to avoid arrest and DWI charges. Shane's family, however, was not content with this theory. They were adamant that Shane would not have run away or abandoned his friends and family, no matter the consequences. Rather, his family put forth the theory that Shane might have suffered some form of brain trauma that wasn't initially obvious over the phone. They believe he could have been confused or even suffering from amnesia, and possibly could have been trying to make his way back to the Savannah, Georgia area where he had lived years prior. Through the Facebook account Help Find Shane Fell, the family encouraged the public to keep an eye out for Shane. They received several tips, but none that we know of led to any breakthrough in Shane's case. In a YouTube video from Brett Fell, which I'll link below, he says that according to nearby security cameras from that night, there were 11 cars that were in the general vicinity of Dead Man's Curve at the time of Shane's accident. Brett mentions a maroon PT Cruiser being of particular interest in the investigation, as it would have been near Shane's accident directly after the 911 call. It is unclear if they were ever able to identify or question any of the drivers. Shane Fell's case is undoubtedly frustrating. The total lack of explanation for what happened that night has led some to believe that there must have been foul play involved. But once again, there are no leads we know of to corroborate this. Even over a decade later, the Fell family has held out hope that someone, somewhere, knows what happened to Shane, and that one day they may finally have answers. On April 11, 2004, 19-year-old Jeremiah Parker drove his cousin to North Sherwood Forest Park in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. The 130-acre park sits in the north of East Baton Rouge Parish and is made up of a fishing pond, walking trail, playground, and several tennis courts. The reason for the trip was to find Jeremiah's cell phone holder that he had apparently lost on his last trip to the park. The duo arrived in the parking lot at approximately 6 p.m., and Jeremiah left the keys in the ignition of his 1993 red Grand Am and told his cousin to wait for him. Jeremiah's cousin saw him disappear beyond a tree line next to the park's 3-acre fishing pond. This would be the last anyone would ever see of Jeremiah. Parker's cousin waited in the car for some time before he grew worried and reported Jeremiah missing, and presumably, an immediate search of the area began. The first thing they found of Jeremiah's was one of his shoes, located only 50 yards from his running car. Unfortunately, there isn't any more information about this find that is available to the public, such as whether it was found in water or on land, or if it gave any clues as to what happened to Jeremiah. The only other item they found was his cell phone. Jeremiah's family told investigators that he was not the type to run away and had never disappeared like this before. The only indication that Jeremiah would have been thinking of running away or starting a new life came from a strange conversation he had with several relatives. According to his family, he had recently gone to see the film The Passion of the Christ, the 2004 Mel Gibson directed take on the last days and resurrection of Jesus Christ. The film had a deep impact on Jeremiah, and according to the Charlie Project, he told his relatives that he would, quote, be leaving soon. Unfortunately, we don't know how his family interpreted his words, and we can't say for certain that the film and his disappearance are connected. Yet one of the strangest details we must mention is that the day Jeremiah disappeared, April 11th, was Easter Sunday. This day has such obvious significance that we don't even have to elaborate. For an unknown reason, a popular rumor about this case is that Jeremiah ran away to start a new life in Canada, although I couldn't find any evidence to support this. Jeremiah's case remains unsolved to this day, and authorities consider him to be an endangered missing person. The disappearance of Jeremiah Parker is one of the most frustrating I have ever read into, as there is so little information available to the public, and still so many unanswered questions. If Jeremiah was planning to run away, why choose to leave your cousin waiting for you at the park? And if he really did run away, did someone else pick him up and take him somewhere, or was he totally alone in his plan? Or is it that something terrible happened to him only 50 yards away from his running car? None of these questions have been answered, and Jeremiah's case remains unsolved almost 2 decades later. On the night of October 14th, 1993, 34-year-old Nelda Hardwick wrote a short note saying she was going to the store and wouldn't be gone for long. The letter was meant for her boyfriend, who was sleeping in their bedroom and had been living with her and her 4 kids for some time. This letter was the last anyone would ever hear from Nelda, and she was never seen again. According to the unnamed boyfriend, he woke up alone the next morning and realized that Nelda had never come home. He quickly reported her missing. He gave officers her image and some of her unique physical attributes that could aid in identifying her. According to the Charlie Project, Nelda walked with a noticeable limp because her left leg was slightly shorter than her right. She also wore a complete set of dentures and had many surgical scars all over her body. From the first day of the investigation, Nelda's family indicated that there must have been foul play involved in her disappearance, as they believed she would never have left her children or her life in Lake Charles behind. Authorities took these accounts seriously and considered her to be an endangered missing person. However, it seems any and all leads dried up in the months after her disappearance. There would be no known developments in her case for about 2 decades. In 2013, investigators announced that they believed Nelda Hardwick may have been a Jane Doe that was accidentally killed in 1998 on an interstate in Hancock County, Mississippi. 5 years after she disappeared, and about 240 miles from where she was last seen. Photos of the body taken in 1998 were shown to Nelda's family, who positively identified the Jane Doe as Nelda. The Hancock County coroner strongly believed that Jane Doe was Nelda, and theorized that she had been kidnapped all the way back in 1993 and held captive for 5 years, before making a bid to escape on the highway, only to be immediately hit and killed by a car. He even went so far as to say that there was a, quote, 1 in 1,000 chance that the Hancock County Jane Doe was not Hardwick. However, the 20-year-old photographs were not enough to say with complete certainty that the Doe was Nelda. The body was ordered by a judge to be exhumed, but what they found in the grave only further confused investigators. The body in the coffin was not Nelda, nor could it have been the Hancock County Jane Doe from the 1998 photographs. Instead, there was an unidentified male body in the coffin. To this day, the actual location of the Hancock County Jane Doe remains a mystery, as well as why there was a different body buried in that spot. And until they locate the body, we cannot say for certain that this Jane Doe was Nelda. As far as we know, there have been no more developments in Nelda's case, and her disappearance remains a mystery to this day. What do you believe happened to the people we discussed today? Do you believe any of these cases were purposeful disappearances, or that they all involved some sort of foul play? I would love to hear your thoughts and theories on these strange cases. And once again, if you have any information regarding these disappearances, all relevant contact information will be linked in the description. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you have a blessed day. And of course, stay safe out there.